Good evening, everyone. I really do appreciate you for joining me once again for a live discipleship discovery. I do apologize. I am trying to make some last minute adjustments here. All right, there we go. All right. Hopefully, everyone had a good holiday, um, and you're back at work. Well, nobody's happy about that, but it is what it is. You got to pay bills. All right. Adulting is not fun, but hopefully you've been reading your Bibles and you've been keeping up with what we've been going over. And hopefully all this is starting to make sense to you and it's starting to paint a picture and whatnot. Um, yeah, so I'm hoping that this is blessing you as much as it is blessing me to even do this. Okay. So, without further ado, I'm going to jump right into tonight's lesson. We're actually going to be doing chapter 5 of John, and I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible, and probably going to be that way moving forward, to whereas I can just kind of compact everything in a short period of time, if you will, so that way that it's not, drawn out and whatnot. Okay. All right. So, we're going to jump into chapter 5 and let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. All right, there we go. All right, so we're going to be talking about chapter 5, with which this is talking about the lame man, or the man that couldn't walk at Bethsaida. And you probably have heard about this story, but there are probably some things that you probably didn't either notice, or you probably like, okay, Jesus healed him. Big deal. Is there's a little bit more to it. Okay, so just stick with me. But we're gonna do verses 1 to verse 17. Okay, we're gonna kind of break chapter 5 up a little bit. All right. So let me go ahead and start with verse 1. It says, "After these things, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool which is called in Hebrew Bethesda. I said Bethsaida because I think there is a place Bethsaida. But anyway, having 5 porticos. In these lay a multitude of those who were sick, blind, lame, and withered, waiting for the moving of the waters. For an angel of the Lord went down at certain seasons into the pool and stirred up the water. Whoever then first, after the stir up of the water, stepped in was made well from whatever disease which he was afflicted. A man was there who had been ill for 38 years. That's a long time. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been a long time in that condition, he said to him, 'Do you wish to get well?' Now, notice that in verse 6 that it mentions that Jesus already knew that this man was in this situation for this long period of time. This is him showing that he knows everything. He knows people, right? He knows what people go through. All right. That's one thing to keep in mind as we go through this. So he goes through and he asks him, he says to him, 'Do you wish to get well?' The sick man answered him, 'Sir, I have no man to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me.' Jesus said to him, 'Get up, pick up your pallet and walk.' Immediately the man became well and picked up his pallet and began to walk. Now it was the Sabbath on that day, for the Jews were saying to the man who was cured, 'It is the Sabbath, and it is not permissible for you to carry your pallet.'" And yes, there are about 39 to 40 different things that Jews, I want to say, even still to this day, they do not do. When it's on the Sabbath, they do no work, none. Don't expect them to do anything. Okay. Verse 11, "But he answered them, 'He who made me well was the one who said to me, Pick up your pallet and walk.' They asked him, 'Who is the man who said to you, Pick up your pallet and walk?' But the man who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had slipped away while there was a crowd in that place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "Behold, you have become well. Do not sin anymore, so that nothing else, or excuse me, nothing worse happens to you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. For this reason, the Jews were persecuting Jesus because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. But he answered them, "My Father is working until now, and I myself am working." All right. So, what I want to do is, let me get here back up to the top real quick. And we're not going to go verse by verse on this, but I'm going to give you basically 3 points on this. So if you are taking notes, you can take notes on these things. So the very first thing that I do want to bring up is that Jesus sees and he cares for individuals' needs. Okay. Now take note of the fact that where this man was, there were other people who were sick. Some probably worse than he was. Some of them probably not, but there was a multitude of people. Okay. There's a bunch of people that Jesus could have talked to or pointed out or healed. Okay. But Jesus pointed out this man for a particular reason. Okay. Notice, number one, that it mentions in verse 6 that Jesus knew how long this man has been, he knew how long he's been sick. He knows this. Okay. But not only does he know this, but he chose him for a particular reason. Okay. Now, keep in mind, I did say and I did mention that Jesus does sees and he cares for individual needs. All right. He does care. Keep that in mind. That's point number one. Well, not only does he care, but when he approaches this gentleman, he's not only, based upon what John is telling us, he's letting us know that yes, that he is God. Okay, just simply from the fact of him knowing the issue that this man has been dealing with and what he's been suffering. And it's not necessarily that he overlooked everyone else, but it's to show that Jesus, God, has a purpose behind the things that he does, which we'll see here in just a few minutes. So the very first thing that I want to take note of, and point number one, again, is that Jesus sees and he cares for individual needs. Now, the second thing that I want to bring up is that faith and obedience, it leads to transformation. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, here's a man who's been in this situation for, I don't know, 38 years, probably more, whatever. Okay. But John tells us, that it's 38 years. However, the fact of the matter is that he was so down and out to the point where he probably could have gotten to that pool. I mean, it's 38 years. Okay. Just think about that. It's 38 years. All right. There may be certain things that we may be dealing with or going through that, I don't know, we've been dealing with for a long, long time. Keep in mind, Jesus knows. But there are times where he will pull at our hearts or pull at a particular situation, or certain things will take place, but it's up to us to be open to receive it. Okay. And that's where the faith and obedience comes into play. Now, notice that it doesn't mention that Jesus touched him. It doesn't mention anything in regards to any kind of actual physical action that took place. It just simply states that he asked the question, "Do you want to get well?" Okay. And by him just simply asking that question to us, the reader, we would have to ask ourselves, well, has this guy gotten to a point where it's at a point of no return, that he's been dealing with this for so long that he's just like, I'm just going to sit here. The pool is right over there. Everybody else gets in before me, or I've been waiting for this long period of time, so forth and so on. But Jesus asks this question for a particular reason. Okay. Now, I want to go ahead and back and share this, share the screen. And the man says, Sir. Now notice he doesn't say Jesus, because as we saw later on, he doesn't know who he is until Jesus comes back and says, Hey, in so many words, this is who I am. But he says, Sir, I have no man to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me. Now, even though Jesus asked this question, Hey, do you want to get well? Because that's what he asked him. He didn't ask him why he hasn't gotten into the pool. He just asks a simple question: do you want to get well? Okay. He comes back with basically, if you want to say, an excuse. Hey, nobody is going to put me into the pool. Nobody is taking the time to put me in XYZ position. Okay. You have a part to play. And that's where your faith and obedience, faith comes into play, and also the obedience. Okay. But in the very next verse, Jesus just simply says, Get up, pick up your pallet, and walk. And immediately, clearly states in verse 9, immediately the man gets up and he begins to walk. Okay. The simple fact of Jesus asking that, again, that question, it in so many words, I guess you say it kind of reassured him in some kind of way. And it may be just a simple fact that of Jesus asking the question that nobody else even asked, as though nobody else cared. Just a simple fact of him asking that question or being asked that question, he was reminded that people do care. All right. You may be in certain situations where, I don't know, you're dealing with certain things. You feel like nobody else sees you or understands what it is that you're going through, you're dealing with. The question that Jesus has for you is, do you want to get well? Do you want X, Y, and Z? Okay. Now, before I go any further, okay, I do not want anyone to take what I just said as a means of saying that this is leaning towards God being a sky daddy, where I just ask for what I want and I get what I want. Furthermore, this is not to encourage the notion or the thought process or even the belief that there's certain things that you as an individual have to do physically in order to receive something. Now, what do I mean by that? We hear it all the time. Sow a seed or sow X amount of seeds, or the bigger the seed, the bigger the blessing. Or if you want to get healed, you got to go to this particular conference, or you got to go to this particular church, or you got to follow after this particular prophet and this particular apostle. It's like you have to go and you do certain things. That is not the case. Here's a man who's been dealing with a situation, and all he needed was what? A word. That was it. That's all he needed. We have a Bible, we have a book that tells us who we serve. It's up to us to have the faith in it, the obedience to it, in order to receive what it is that God has for us. Now, notice I did not say what we want. Notice I did not say that. Now, according to the title of this particular video, I titled it Sovereign Healing for a Particular Purpose. Okay. Let me go back to the text. All right. So now it says in the very, it start with verse 9. It says, Immediately the man became well and picked up his pallet and began to walk. Now it was a Sabbath on that day. So the Jews were saying to the man who was cured, It is the Sabbath, and it is not permissible for you to carry your pallet. But he answered them, He who made me well was the one who said to me, Pick up your pallet and walk. Again, the man didn't know Jesus. As old as that old saying is, the man didn't know Jesus from Adam. No pun intended. He didn't know who he was. All he says, hey, this guy told me to get up. I don't know. I finally had somebody that even just simply cared, and I just got up, and I don't know who he is. Okay. But I want you to take note of the fact of the Jews and how they responded. Now you have this legalistic side of things where they were very, very religious, meaning they had these set of rules that they had to follow. They felt like if I keep these rules and these certain things, I'm going to be closer to God, or I'm in right standing with God, and the list goes on. Even though this here was a miracle that has taken place, a healing that has taken place, they're more concerned with what the legalism, um, as we will call it today, the religious side of things. Okay, they were more focused on that particular piece versus on the miracle that actually took place. Okay, now also to bring up is the fact that again, it mentions in verse 13, but the man who was healed did not know who he was, for Jesus had slipped away. Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. It's like um, oh man, it just came to mind. I can't remember the old saying, but it's basically where you go and Jesus just goes and does something, and then he just kind of slips away. It. I don't know how else to put it, but it's almost like Jesus causing problems, but it's with a purpose. Okay. Now this is where the sovereignty comes into play. Okay. And this is point number three. Point number three is the fact that God's work transcends human traditions and limitations. Okay. Again, we're talking about some religious people who, again, follow certain rules, even though yes, in the Old Testament, there were certain rules that were placed, or certain laws that were in place that they had to follow. But even those laws were there for a particular purpose. Okay. It was to show them, as Paul mentions, that it was to show the sin, to show that you cannot get to a level of being pleasing in God's sight on your own. You just can't. These people try and try, and they were so focused on that particular piece that they missed the whole entire point. But again, God's work transcends human traditions and limitations. The sovereignty part comes into play, and sovereignty basically means that God is in control. He can do what he wants. And if you want a little bit more detail in regards to the sovereignty of God and him being able to do what he wants, and I will say, yes, God is self-centered. Now, when I say that, he is the only one that could be self-centered because he created everything. Who else can there be that can be self-centered and still be loving at the exact same time? God alone. Okay. Now, when Jesus comes back and talks to the man, he comes back to him and he said, and Jesus, notice it says that Jesus went and found him in the temple, and he said to him, behold, you have become well. Do not sin anymore, so that nothing worse happens to you. Now, some people may translate this as, or when they read this, they may think, oh, well, this man must have done something in order to receive this sickness, or had to have done some kind of sin in order to, I don't know, take on this illness. And a lot of times we tend to ask that question even today in regards to people who get sick. Well, see, God don't like ugly. If I don't know, you must have did something. Sound familiar? Kind of like with Job. His friends, they were talking to him saying, you must have done something wrong. Like, come on, just come on, give it up. What did you do? What did you do? What did you do in order for this to happen to you? Now, there are times where things will happen in our lives and we would ask those questions. Make a long story short, God is still in control. It's beyond our understanding. He does things. Let me put it this way. All of us have been kids at one time, at some point in time. All right. We didn't just come out of the womb as adults as we are today. But growing up, we didn't get everything that we wanted. We didn't get everything that we asked for. A lot of times it was even hard for the parent. And if you're a parent today, you know this for a fact. As far as being a parent, it's hard sometimes to tell a child no, or tell them that they have to wait, or you really want to do it, but yet you know it's not good for them to have it at that particular moment in time. This is where the whole sovereignty thing comes into play when it in relation to God. Okay. He makes that decision. He makes that choice in order to either give, heal, answer that prayer, whatever timing of that prayer is. It's up to him. He's, if I can put it this way, he's like the parent. Okay. As a parent, you don't just, I was about to say you don't just give your kids everything, because there are some that do. You get my point. Bless those kids' hearts. Um, yeah, you don't give them everything that they want. Why? Because you're trying to teach them a lesson. You're trying to teach them whatever that lesson is. Okay. You don't want them to grow up to be being entitled. Now let's place that exact same thing in relation to what we're talking about now in relation to God. If God gave us every single thing that we ever wanted, number one, do you think that we will really, truly love him? Just think about that for a second. Do you really think that we would truly love God for who he is or for what he can provide? Let me give you another example. And you guys know I like to, put my own self on the chopping block. And this probably has happened to you as well as a kid. So I don't know how they do things in the North, and I don't know how other ethnicities do things, but in a black home, at least back in the day, of course, things have changed nowadays for the most part. We got whoopings, and sometimes we got beatings. Okay, depending on the situation, and it doesn't matter where it takes place. And when it's time, it's time. Okay, but as a kid, I had asked the question one time, like, why do you whoop me? Now, the answer that I got as a kid blew my mind, confused me, the whole 9 yards. The response I got was, it's because I love you. Like, wait a minute, what? Like, this don't look like love. Like, what is this? But it wasn't until I got mature. Now, hopefully, as I'm going through this example or this story, notice how as you got older, you start to realize, you know what? I'm glad that my parent, my guardian, or whatnot chastised me, that they punished me or they did certain things in order to keep me in line. There's certain things, even when they don't give you certain things, it's the same thing when it comes to God. He doesn't give you certain things. He doesn't come when you want him to, or whatever those things are, or even if his issues and problems that you may be dealing with, it's for a purpose. Now, what is that purpose? Now, this is where things get really, really tricky. And I don't know if you're ready for this. It ain't about you. Let me say it again. It's not about you. It's about God. It's about his glory. It's about him getting the glory. At the end of the day, it ain't about you. It's about him. It's about him and him getting the glory, him you him getting you us to realize who he is and how much he's in control. It's not about you. It's not about us. It's not. Let me go back to the text. Now, I want you to take note of the fact that here's a man, once again, 38 years dealing with this situation. Everybody else is there, sick, whatever, right? People jumping in the pool, getting healed, whatever, okay? But this particular man, Jesus points out, singles out for a particular reason, not only to heal him. Now, he gets a benefit from it, but Jesus does this for a particular reason. If you take note of verse 17, it says, but he answered them, not, well, let me go back to verse 16. It says, for this reason, the Jews were persecuting Jesus because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. But he answered them, my Father is working until now, and I myself am working. Now, we're not going to get into it this week. We'll continue on in verse 18, but basically what's taking place, which it happens all over the Gospels. Jesus goes and does something, heals, whatever it is that he's doing. He's doing it on the Sabbath, but notice he's doing it on the Sabbath. He got 6 other days to do this stuff. 6 other days. He chooses to do it on the Sabbath for a reason, to stir the pot so that he can stir the pot, get people riled up, all that, whatever, starting a conversation. He does it for a reason. But he chose this man because he knew that this man was going to go. He knew what was going to happen. He knew it was going to bring about that interaction between Jesus and these Jews. He's this, ooh, kind of wrap your head around that. Stuff happens, whether it's issues, problems, whatever. It's to help us to recognize who God is and that he does exist. A side note from this, the next time, if you currently are, or even the next time you're dealing with something, going through something, instead of asking when God is going to do X, Y, and Z, or when he's going to answer X, Y, and Z, or you keep praying for X, Y, and Z, Lord, ask this instead. God, how are you going to get the glory out of this? Take it off of yourself and focus on him. Because at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. Now, for us in this society, that's probably very, very hard for us to do, to put ourselves to the side and to just say, you know what, I'm going to focus on someone else, because we live in a self-centered, self-idol world. We are the idols, the new idols of 2026. Okay. Of course, they had, now we still got wooden idols. The masses, we are the new idols. And sometimes it can be hard to just say, you know what, it's about someone else. And at the end of the day, it's for someone else to get the glory. It's kind of hard for us to do that. Okay. And in this particular case, as we've seen here, Jesus did things for a particular reason. He chose this man out of a crowd of folks for a particular reason. What you're dealing with, what you're going through, you're dealing with it and going through it for a particular reason. Whatever it is that you're wanting to be healed from, it's there for a reason. It's now time to start asking about that sovereign healing. Is it going to be healing in this particular realm, on this side, or is it going to happen on the other side? The fact of the matter is, it's not about you, but you're going to be healed one way or another. You're going to be out of that situation one way or another. Okay? I hope this lesson has helped you. If it has, please leave a comment below, and also share this video, and I don't know, share the channel, the video, whatnot on social media, whatever it is, and invite others to join in as well. I really do appreciate you. See you on next week.